Hello and welcome to the May 2019 layout update for the Trent Valley Railway. In this update we'll look at the latest track work on the layout, and I have now progressed across here. So then there's 2 points that branch out before a sort of third. There'll be some trains running on the removable baseboard section. And there'll be a sneak peek at the main fiddle yard for the Trent Valley Railway. The lines curve around and then they start to branch out into each of the fiddle yard lines. I've made good progress over the past month, so let's get straight into having a look at what's been done since the last update. The main thing I've been working on over the past month is getting these joins correct between the sections of my layout which are fixed, and then the removable baseboard which is the centerpiece here to allows me to get in and out the garage. This has been quite a task to get each of these lines firstly lined up across the join, and then secondly to actually get the rails at the right height so that we don't have any derailments. So I'm using code 75 track, which is also fine scale compared to code 100 or other set track that Pico do, or other track by other manufacturers. But the key to this has mainly been trying to keep each of these sections on a straight section of track for where the join is between the removable baseboard and the fixed section. So I've been able to do this on this side, whilst then keeping at least to a sort of minimum of a third radius curve on each of those joins. And where trains will be going into the fiddle yard on the sort of wooden sleepers, these trains will be going a lot slower over these joins, whereas trains on the main running lines might be going a lot quicker. So the main running lines are very much straight. The sort of fiddle yard lines, which are the wooden sleepers, some of those connections have got a sort of slight curve in them, but not sort of very drastic. Otherwise, as I found out on the other side, I do have lots of problems that I need to work through about changing the track layout to make sure that the joins don't cause me an issue when I'm running the trains. In the previous update, I showed you the work that I was doing to create this very small fiddle yard here, which would house the Voyager and also house the London Midland Class 350. As part of testing the curves and also testing the track work and the joins, I've been using two other locos here. First of all, a Class 08 shunter, which is the Network Rail with a few Network Rail wagons, and then the other train here is my Pendolino with just a coach attached to make sure, because this is one of the sort of most temperamental trains that I have because it tilts, but to make sure that because it's such a long wheelbase and the cornering as it tilts, to make sure that it doesn't hit any of the other sort of rolling stock that might be in a siding. All of this area that I completed in the last update is now electrified. It's got power to it, and I've also put in the point motors for that point over there where the Class 350 running line comes together, and I've also wired up the point motors as well for the 2 points before it starts to then go up the incline on the left hand side. So these are ready to go, they're in operation. I just need to put in the point decoders here to get this all working, but otherwise these trains will move along this section of track. At the end of the last layout update, I'd made a start on the track for the removable baseboard section. I'd lined up a lot of the tracks on the left hand side over there with the three-way point and the single track at the very back by the garage door. And I have now progressed across here, so then there's 2 points that branch out before a sort of third and into a crossover there, and then there's a last one that then branches out towards the sidings on the other side of the layout. I've then got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 lines there on the right hand side which connect in the removable baseboard with the other side of the fiddle yard. Most of the joins between the removable baseboard and the fiddle yard sections and the main layout all work very fine. To give you an example though of one area that is slightly of concern and has changed several times is this little corner here with the main running line. So as this pendolino comes around here, it's fine for the first few, and then I've had some issues over the connection here, and it's very temperamental as to the join at that part of the layout, and there we go, it's just derailed. So I have changed this already once in sort of testing, as I found that this corner here and how the pendolino come round was also already causing me problems, and it did go down into this gap here underneath there and joined the baseboard. But the problem with joining in those two places, you can just about see it on the camera, is that actually the baseboards didn't line up in terms of height, and if I'd have had a different height there, I'd have had again different height down the other end where all the sort of other lines were joining, so that would have caused major issues, and the point did previously come across then and join into this section here in the middle. So our first attempt to resolve this has been to sort of realign that route through there in the front. It works for the first part, but it does give a very tight reverse curve there, and in some instances the train will then derail. And if I just sort of move the board ever so slightly though, look, it then works absolutely fine. So what I need to do in that section there is create a straight piece of track that is then aligned with the rest of the joins on that side, and what I am going to do is probably redo this section across here so that the line that now comes in from that area actually joins the other line before the crossover, because it doesn't really need to be after or before. So I've got a spare point ready. This is going to go in there, and so the turnout from that point will then feed, it'll be about there, it will then feed into the running line, which is the concrete sleepers, and then as we come this way those crossovers will be moved towards the left here, and I'll take out that point on the left hand side which branches out onto the running line, because that will now be replaced by the new curved point instead. I've removed the 3 points that were in the removable baseboard section here, and they went all the way down actually to join up with the other three-way point there. I've got 3 point motor holes which I'd already pre-drilled underneath each of those, which I'll now fill up, and then I'll put back down the track. The track is now down in its new position, so I've changed from the three-way point on the left that leads off to the smaller fiddle yard, put in a concrete sleeper little section there, and then I've moved that crossover further into sort of the middle of the removable baseboard, and I've added in that new point then there, which enables a much better curve off the main running line and onto the main fiddle yard around the corner there. Compared to the previous track I had over this side of the baseboard, I've also changed the concrete sleepers in the very middle. I did previously have a very short section off the end and joining into the point, but I've now changed that out for a much longer section. Whilst I've done that, I've also pinned down in a much better format the join between the removable section and the fiddle yard on the right hand side. Gives a much neater sort of finish with the trains running across. So because I've moved the point here to give a nicer curve for the running line, it does mean that the line in the centre then, which is the wooden sleepers going into the fiddle yard area, which is the black sleepers, that has got a bit of a sort of tighter curve to it, to make sure then that there is a straight section between the track that is on the removable section and the track that is then on the fiddle yard section on the right hand side. I have found by sort of doing this that trying to put those joins on any slight curve at all creates a real problem in terms of trying to line up each of those 5 tracks across the removable baseboard. So this is now set in the right position so that the trains don't derail, and what I'll do now is we'll have a few shots of some of the smaller locos that I have running across the points. The right hand side there on the fiddle yard is not yet powered up, so some of the running shots you'll see will only be for just across the removable section. A lot of my time has also been taken up by powering up the fiddle yard section that I've so far complete, and also then this removable section. I've got these 3-way points here. There's a turnout there, a point at the top, and then there's these other 2 points now which I've just re-put back into place, which are all powered. So there's wire to the frog, there's wire to then the rails on the outside, and you'll also see within this shot that I've also put in some wire across the rails, so that power is there before the isolated section of the frog. So that's taken a bit of time to get all of those all wired up, and then I've drilled the necessary holes, put the wires through the baseboard, and then that's all now wired up underneath there. You may be wondering, I've got a removable baseboard section that isn't part of the fixed layout, so how is the power getting to the removable baseboard? Well, it's quite simply done through this little connector here. There's quite a good thickness of cable that this, I think it's from online, an RC car type connection, and they simply come apart like that. It's quite a firm connection, as you'll have just seen, but they've basically got a pin on each connection there, and then when I'm taking the board in and out to get in and out the garage, obviously those will be disconnected, and then I only need to connect those up when the layout is in operation. So that's going to create the power across the middle section here in the removable baseboard, and I'll do the same as well on the other side, connecting in onto the main fiddle yard so that the power runs in a loop all the way around the layout. All 4 of these points are all wired up as well. They've all got their point motors as well in place and ready to be wired up to an accessory decoder once I've got that sorted. And as part of getting this removable baseboard finished on the lower level, I've also started to do some of the lines that go off into the main fiddle yard. So we'll now have a sneak peek at some of the progress over there, but a lot of that fiddle yard section will be the feature of the next layout update. Here is a sneak peek at the progress of the main fiddle yard. The layout comes down that side of the garage, but starts from the removable section there on the left. The lines curve around and then they start to branch out into each of the fiddle yard lines, all the way from the front of the board here all the way to the very back of the wall over there. And as you can see, I've already started to get some more of those long track sections wired up, ready to go. There'll be about another 4 lines as well towards the back of there that you can't see at the moment, but all of this will be the main feature in the next layout update. I hope to progress all the way towards the other end of the fiddle yard, so hopefully there's something to look forward to there. Thank you very much for watching. Cheers.